All right, so let's get started. Everyone, thank you for joining us for another Smith.ai Masters Series. I'm Maddy Martin. I am the Head of Growth and Education for Smith.ai. We are a 24/7 virtual receptionist service, primarily serving solo and small law firms. So we answer calls, we complete intake, we do scheduling, we take payments by phone, web chat, text, and now Facebook message too. And we speak English and Spanish. Not me personally, our receptionist. So we are creating these webinars as another resource for your business to help you build growth in a sustainable, smart way. And Molly and I have known each other for quite a while now, and I've been so impressed with her expertise. I think we first connected when I was on your podcast, Molly, and the Hiring Empowering podcast, and we had such a great conversation that it really just continued on from there. And today, what we're focused on is just one small area of your expertise, Molly. And that is, narrowing in on the leadership, the administration of a law firm when you, the law firm owner or key stakeholder, you are spread too thin. It's not your core competency. How do you grow with key hires or non-hires? So today we're going to be talking about how do you look for those key indicators that you need a CEO or fractional CEO. We'll define what that means. Molly will define what that means. And then what are the other sort of key hires that you might be looking at? A law firm administrator and other sort of positions like that. And what can that do to impact your growth, your work-life balance, your revenue, your caseload, et cetera, so that you have really a sustainable path to consistent, comfortable growth. So with that said, Molly, thank you so much for being here. Just give a brief introduction for yourself to everyone here. How did you sort of find yourself as an owner of Hiring and Empowering? And what is it that really drives your passion every day? What gets you jumping out of bed in the morning to come and present on topics like this?
Thank you for having me, Maddy. So grateful. So I've been in the legal space since 1997, and the long story short of how I got to founding Hiring and Empowering Solutions, I was involved in many, many different legal organizations that you and I have spoke on their panels and things of that nature, and really saw this need for bridging the gap between the employee and the business owner, law firm owner, attorney. And so often I'd go to conferences and speak and what have you, and people would ask me, how do I clone you? How do I get a Molly? How do I create an employee that knows what it means to have my back, knows how to protect my time and energy and my confidence, and really be able to step up and lead? That's a common theme I heard. How do I get my employees to step up and lead? Which really led me to writing one of my first books, which I coined Entrepreneurs in the Entrepreneur's World, how to create employees that know what it means to step up and lead. Because the law firm owner would be saying this, but then the employee had no idea what that meant. And it really led me to a place of building my business on the consulting side of it, doing the fractional CEO, COO, CMO services, and I'll speak into what those terms mean, and in addition to the hiring and staffing. And our model is really, really unique because we work with law firms that also, when they bring us on, to help them find people, whether they're virtual, whether they're fractional, whether they're full-time, that it also includes that consulting side of things. Because so often attorneys, they don't have the time, energy, or bandwidth for hiring is one thing, but I really found that the biggest roadblocks for hiring someone is, what the heck do I do with them once I get them? I don't have the time to train them. I certainly don't have the skill set for it. And then, then that comes within a tremendous amount of missed expectations and breakdowns, and why we hear from law firm owners, business would be great, but for the employees. And so really being able to bridge that gap, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning, is to be able to show up on Zoom rooms every day that I'm on, because I'm in West Coast, from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every single day, leading and serving as that fractional CEO and or CMO, and being able to take the burden off of the business owner, the attorney, and the team members and get them on the same playing field, let them work within their unique ability, and then give all the headaches and dump them on my desk, which I do have the unique ability to be able to serve in that capacity.
Molly, thank you so much. I think one of the questions that you and I probably both see most often in many of the peer groups and Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, commentary online in general, on podcasts, constant topics, should I hire in-house? How do I do so? What's a good sort of job requisition look like? How do I interview these people? Or should I just outsource? And my answer is almost always you will learn so much about outsourcing to someone who is remote, someone who is already an expert, and they can actually show you how the job is supposed to be done, so that whether that's a temporary or permanent situation where you have that outside help, you at least have your expectations set, for what that role should really be like. And when you work with someone like you, Molly, then that law firm knows that they are putting the right people in that role to learn from and grow as a law firm owner, to say, I'm making good business decisions. And it actually starts with bringing in the right people at the top to teach me how to run the business and to sort of shadow you as you and your team do so. So, we've talked about, some terms, CEO, CMO, you even mentioned COO, what role do those very executive positions play in a law firm? Like, why in the world would a law firm need a CEO?
I love that question. I actually did a podcast on that and actually hired or interviewed a law firm CEO that I supported in hiring a long time ago. And we had that exact conversation. Why in the world would you need one? I'll answer that question. I'm a storyteller in regards to sharing a story. I have a law firm that I am their fractional CEO/COO for, and I'll get into kind of the terminologies about it. Here's a perfect example of why you need one. You are in client meetings as an attorney, you know what your unique ability and what you need to do every day. Most small law firms, they have front desk person, attorney, then they have paralegals and maybe law clerks, legal assistants sprinkled throughout. Yesterday alone, this is a law firm that they had two outside community outreach coordinators that were in contact with COVID when they were doing a speaking engagement. So while the attorney is in conference room doing back-to-back meetings, collecting checks, and also serving clients, they had an outbreak of COVID. Their probate paralegal quit. During this time, their client service coordinator was in a massive car accident, and all of this happened in a span of 4 hours. And one of their biggest client checks that came in, the check bounced, and it was supposed to cover payroll for the week. So their first person that the team calls, or team leader calls, is me, and dumps all of that on me as a fractional CEO. I mean, we had the phone fixed. We called Peter at Smith.ai, done, fixed. We had called in a hazmat team to come and do. We sent the team out, the two people to go get testing. We were able to rectify the bounce check, call the client, handle that. The attorney had no idea about this. And this is why, because so often when we start triaging all these things that happen, truly, I mean, we weren't even at lunch yet, and coming up with these things that happen day in and day out. What I hear from attorneys for 25 years is I come out of a conference room and people are lined up with nothing but problems for me and no proposed solutions, number one. And or I'm about to walk into a conference room. I'm supposed to close a deal. I'm to show up like an expert, and I'm supposed to serve my clients. And I just got that type of news 10 minutes before walking on stage to do a podcast, close a client, whatever it means. You are responsible for the energy you bring in the room. You can't unhear that. You can't not bring that into, and you're supposed to meet with the client in your subconscious mind. You're saying to yourself, we can't get hired by this client because there's no way we could service them because we don't have a paralegal now. We're down an attorney. And then you just walk in with that baggage, emotional baggage of all the reasons. So, I always tell attorneys when they call me, they're like, do I, don't you? What's the revenue number? What's the number of cases number? They're trying to find this magic formula to justify investing in their next hire, whether it be a professional law firm administrator, CEO, COO, or it's an associate attorney, whatever it is. My recommendation to them is I want you to get out an old school yellow legal pad for 5 days. I want to write you to write down everything that robbed you of your energy and confidence, everything where people were delegating back up to, the administrative stuff that you're dealing with when you could be completing work to deliver on a client to get the final check or whatever it means. Just make it easy. Write Monday on the top and write down the things that trigger you, the things that frustrate you, the things that rob you of confidence of your people, your process, your profit, whatever it might be, and then scan it and send it to me. And then we'll go through it, and that will help you to discern what your next hire is and where you need to let go, and then where you need to invest and step up. And then that really is, we've all read the E-Myth and many of the various books out there, but that's where you get the freedom that you claim, that you crave so much to really become. So often people are like, can I just be an attorney? Can I just be an entrepreneur? Can I be a business owner? And until you get that clarity and then you make a decision, and then you put your money where your mouth is, you don't get that freedom.
And I think for some people who are listening to this, who are thinking, I actually have found that in owning my own law firm, I really like the marketing, or I really like the business systems. That's also fine. You probably don't love payroll. You probably don't love sort of all the mundane tasks that you end up doing because, it's going to take too much time for me to teach someone how to do it. So you end up doing it late at night, around when the kids are in bed or whatever, early in the morning, you wake up. It may not actually be just practicing law. That's obviously a big part of it, but you might really enjoy some of these other things. You can do that. But what that list is going to give you is all the other things that you actually often discount. You don't think that they're taking up as much time as they actually are. And then when you go through, and actually, if you put timestamps even on a list like that, like if you actually really keep track of all your time and not just billable time, what do you see? You see what the Clio Legal Trend Report says. Every single year, you're spending hours on administration, office management, billing and bookkeeping tasks that you should be handing off so that you can practice, as Jared Correa says it, if anyone knows him,
Yes.
at the top of your law license, right? And that's such a vivid picture. So, you talked about sort of this sort of panic scenario, right? And I'm sure that many people are thinking, okay, I hope that never happens to me. What are some indicators that it's the right time to start thinking about hiring a CEO or administrator? Like, hopefully you're not in a panicky situation. What are some signs or maybe symptoms that indicate this is the right next step for your firm?
You named a couple of them already. When you find yourself working nights and weekends, and you're using that time for doing administrative work, whether it's reviewing documents or billing or even driving the marketing, you find yourself in your office, like scrambling on a whiteboard or trying to make sense of your marketing plan, try to come up with a marketing plan when you're kind of in that roller coaster between chasing cash flow, chasing clients, delivering the work, and you find yourself, I can't tell you how many firms are calling me. They're like, well, no, we're not taking on any more work. We refer it out because we can't handle it. That is the surest sign that it is time to hire. Where I was on a phone call with a firm where I service their CMO this morning, and they had 95 leads this week. And you know this with Smith.ai. And the attorney said, I don't really care if anyone follows up with them because we're booked out 3 weeks and we can't handle them anyway. Like, that is the surest sign for stunting your growth. Not only that, but burning out your existing people. And then you're going to start having a turnover where people start to leave and things of that nature, because people want to belong to something that is leveraging, that has opportunity, that has breadth, that has growth. And so when they start seeing that we're stunting our own growth, which just means there's going to be just a bubble effect of that work coming on to the attorney and everybody else within the firm. So that's the surest sign. And another one that people do not pay enough attention to, because we're all about ROI, KPIs, we're all about the money, the calendar, and all that. But when you find yourself, and these are words I've heard from attorneys in 25 years, pulling into the parking lot and resenting walking into the office, because you know there's just going to be a line of people delegating back up to you, know what piles are sitting on your desk, which you just rearrange them like chairs on the deck of the Titanic, and you know what you're walking into. When you feel yourself already resenting your day before you even walk through those doors, whether it's a Zoom room or a physical office, that's an indication that you really need to conduct a stop restart.
It's also an indication if you're dreading or resenting sort of the work that you have, queued up for yourself to a large extent. You're probably not going to bring your best self to your work. You're not going to think as clearly, and other things sort of deteriorate, unfortunately. And there's no way to come to your work with your best self if you start your day out sort of in the doldrums, right? There's no way to say, I'm going to be a great leader today, a great manager. I'm going to keep my eye out for opportunities and strategically make decisions. It's almost like you have a cloud that's hanging around with you, or just a weight that's pressing down on your shoulders. Either way, it's a burden and it's distracting. And one of the things that, you were talking about in terms of, are you delegating effectively? I think you may not be making the most strategic decisions if you have all of these leads that are coming through and you don't care if any of them sort of close with you because you already have a full book of clients. What does that say? It actually means that you don't even know what leads are in that pool that you're missing. There could be some phenomenal, new potential clients in that pool who you really meaningfully would want to work with and help, and that would bring light to your firm. If you just see them as just another number, that's also a sign that you're not coming to the table with a clear head every morning. Leads are not numbers, they're potential, and they have ranked potential. So if you just see, oh, that number 95, I've got plenty of business, doesn't matter. There's nothing, worthwhile for me in that pool, refer them out or ignore them, then you're really sort of missing that big picture that the highest sort of functioning law firms also make very clear set strategic decisions around the new clients that they bring in. And that's a hallmark of a very sophisticated firm, that they do look at every single lead. They know how to properly and consistently screen and triage and treat each one as their firm has determined they're a good fit or not. So it's not necessarily a good sign if you're so busy, but you're just lumping extra leads into one category. That's not sort of a high functioning firm.
Absolutely. And I just want to speak into that, because not only that, but you mentioned a few things. You might like the marketing as an entrepreneur, as the attorney, and you can be part of it. It's different when you have a fractional CMO or a CMO in-house that's serving. When in that moment, when I'm like, time out, whoa, let me run the report and look at it. I'm like, do you understand that 12% of these leads came from your top referral source? If you ignored these leads right now, there is going to be such a destruction that comes from it. So Susie, I need you to capture these top 12 leads right now, because we are in the personal and professional services. I don't know many law firms, and a lot of the law firms I work with, they don't have this discretionary marketing budget that they could throw out the window for pay-per-click and SEO and what have you. No, you're a good bulk, if you're doing it right, at least 60% of your business is going to come from referral sources, whether
Right.
clients or power partners or what have you. So we need to attend to them first and foremost right now. And that's your point of when you start treating it strategically like a business. Yes, you're involved in the weekly marketing meeting. Yes, you get to get on videos. Yes, you get to write blogs. Yes, you get to do webinars, whatever your unique ability is, but you're not responsible for the reporting and the KPIs. You're not responsible for the pieces that are not the highest, best, good use of your time. And to your point, if you're going to be doing that at midnight, you're going to see that report of 95 and you're just going to shut down because you don't know what to do with them. And if you're wholly, solely responsible for it as an entrepreneur, as the attorney, then it's not only that you're missing a massive opportunity for growth and up-leveling and leveraging, but you actually could be doing, and most often, doing so much damage for the stuff that helped you build your business when you collected your first dollar in the first place.
Absolutely. I mean, we could just reference that pool of leads. There's so many conversations
Yeah.
to pull out of that. What referrals are in there? What reputations are you damaging by ignoring that? That's a whole nother class. And if anyone wants to learn more about referral marketing, we have a great video on our YouTube channel about debunking referral marketing and networking myths. But back to this topic of, the CEO and the lead administrator of a firm, if you are to bring on a CEO or an admin, how long do you need to wait until you know that the role is efficacious, that it's working, that it's providing that ROI that we so desperately want?
It's so funny because no matter what position I hire for in a law firm, they'll always tell me, well, it's going to take 6 to 9 months until they get up to speed. I'm like, no, not if they're a superstar and they come with batteries included. You will know in 30 days. Just even in our retained search contracts, I force the attorney to fire someone within 30 days if they don't meet their KPIs. I make them get on a phone call with me day one that they start, create very clear, concise, well-communicated goals. And then we meet every single week. Within 2 to 3 weeks if somebody isn't performing. So if you're going to hire, startup type people, well, and you want to hire someone that is not going to cost you as much, and that you're going to have to, there's always an exchange of resources, time, money, and energy. So I always tell people, where's your biggest shortage? For most law firms, their first response is money, but it's not the truth. They have money laying all over their office if they did some follow-up. It's really their time and energy that's there. So if you're hiring somebody, and this is what I like about the fractional and the outsourced model first and foremost, because it doesn't cost you as much. If you're going to hire a CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, a COO, Chief Operating Officer, CEO, Chief Executive Officer, CFO, Chief Financial Officer, any of that C-suite employees, you already know you're going to be paying 150 base plus bonus structure, plus, the Cadillac benefit package and things of that nature. If you're lucky, you'll hire someone who has law firm experience. Very, very difficult to find someone because most law firms, small, medium, solos, do not have that position. And then when the attorneys start interviewing them, they're like, well, they come from big firm. They don't understand our culture. They're not going to work, what have you. So, the time when you should hire for that person and what you should expect of when they get up to speed is 30 days, period. If they come with the batteries included, regardless of what role they're in, and you are very clear on what you want in that job description. And I tell people, don't go out to Indeed, don't go out to all your state bars and get these job descriptions. Go to what is currently being delegated up to and be really, really clear. Like when I hired my legal, or not my legal assistant, but my executive assistant 4 years ago, the job description that I wrote is, I am so overwhelmed. I have no time to train you. You better be able to come and take 50% off my desk by Friday. And that was my job description. It's funny because somebody asked Brianna in my office of like, well, how'd you find her? Where'd you find her? I want to clone her. How'd you attract her? I'm like, tell them the job description I wrote. And she started laughing. She goes, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna crush that goal. And she did within a week. I knew. I mean, she probably saved me thousands of dollars and just going through invoices, going through my credit card, seeing where it was charged. I knew I needed to get an ROI on her in 1 week, and I had a dollar amount in my head of what I wanted.
And that's something that also is a big knowledge gap, I think, for law firm owners who don't know how to set expectations. They don't know what's reasonable. What can I ask someone to achieve? Because it's informed by the past experience. And that past experience might be a big firm, and then your firm, maybe one other small firm, maybe some other, experience that you've had in, government or nonprofit, public sector, whatever. Most people are big firm and then small firm, or just straight into small firm.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? It means that you don't necessarily know, like, how do I properly set expectations? Maybe that was sort of behind the curtain in a big firm and you didn't get visibility into it. And now here you are on your own and you're trying to watch every online course that you possibly can about, how to do really great hiring. Well, that also takes a lot of time. Right. So
Yes.
if you spend too much time trying to discover all of this for yourself and research and prove it out and watch every YouTube video under the sun, first of all, it's going to take a lot of time. Second of all, you might not have the right answer depending on where you get your information. And you don't have time to go to business school now or really go back to a formal program. So that's the other thing. I think you accelerate the learning curve, Molly. So when you're doing that, when you say, what is reasonable to expect? You said 60% of your business ideally should be coming from referrals. I think if you didn't already identify that number that Molly said, write that down. What is your number? Do you know your numbers? Because if you don't know your numbers, you can't set goals against them. So that's probably also something that, how do you know if the role is working? There might be, depending on how your law firm is currently operating, some time for that CEO, for that law firm administrator to go in and say, you know what, the first few weeks, I'm going to tell you what your numbers are, and I'm going to try and figure out those numbers. And then we should get together and figure out what the goal should be once we agree on the current baseline, the foundation that we're working with. Is that something that you find as well?
Yeah, it is. Like right now, my favorite thing is when I could come in and serve as a fractional in the role. And now I have a law firm where I'm hiring an in-house where they are paying 6 figures, CEO type level, COO level. And their first assignment, they're going in for in-house interviews this Friday. And literally the attorney is taking their list, and I have them break it into your people, your process, your production, and your profit. And that break it into those 4 areas, put your projects down there, take your top 3 that you're like, these has got to be fixed by Sunday or Monday or last week, whatever it is, and give it to that person and have them come to you with a proposed solution of how they're going to fix it. You should know your numbers in regards to what you want from a very high level perspective, but when you hire the right person, they'll be able to extract the questions out of you to gain that clarity. So it's not 100% on you to know exactly down to the penny, down to the measurement, down to the KPI, what have you, but from a frustration perspective, from a time perspective, from an energy perspective, where you keep getting dragged in and you're missing opportunities, or you're responsible for having your hand on the steering wheel and driving the bus where you really want to be sitting in the back seat and have someone else chauffeur it. So I tell people, have a high level. Sometimes you have to pick your clarity from a place of pain of where you are feeling it, whether it be in money, appointments, conversion rates, turnover, profit, process, production, life cycle of a file, at the top of your head. So when you get just clarity and do that brain dump and get it out there for the right role and the right person, they'll help extract it. They'll help facilitate and navigate that for you. And if they're not, if I always say the number one indicator of when someone's working is not working is when 90% of the time they're come to you with proposed solutions versus proposed problems.
Very interesting. Okay, there's a lot to sort of meditate on there. Now, for people who say, look, I'm running a small firm, I don't have a budget. I don't have a need for this like 6-figure salary. Where is my assurance? Where is my guarantee that like this is actually going to benefit me? Look, I've been surviving without this person. I can deal with the stress. I'm used to the stress. Stress is just a way of life. I'm a, type A person, or however we want to sort of discount sort of the impact that that has on our lives. How do you make the case for it? And how do you sort of set assurances in place that this is a good hire and a good investment?
Mm-hmm. Well, when you don't have the budget for the figure, that's why I like the terminology fractional. It does mean that you're spending a fraction of the cost versus putting somebody on your payroll, what have you. They're spending a fraction of their time because it's their expertise. You don't need someone for full time. You're able to come in there and be very, very intentional. They have a skill set, they have the knowledge, they have the mindset and all of that. So there's something to be said when you put somebody, whether it be an independent contractor, outsourced, fractional, whatever it is. It's why I like the model, is because you have to write them a check, whether you show up or not. So when you put someone on a monthly retainer for that, it's no longer about counting hours, but it's about counting results. So if you outsource and you bring someone on, it causes you right from the day that you say, okay, let's do this, and you hire them, you immediately shift your mindset into a business owner, your intentionality and your clarity. Because when you have a fractional person or an outsourced or, a 1099, they only have limited time. So when they show up every week for your weekly CEO meeting, they show up every single week for leading your team meeting or what have you, people have to show up like adults. There's no longer why people hate meetings and things of that nature. It's because there's typically nobody facilitating and leading it. And so when you're writing someone a check to facilitate, lead, but also hold people accountable, that more than anything is well worth its weight in gold of what you're paying the person, because it causes everybody to up level and to rise above. So often people will say to me, oh my gosh, I feel like a real business owner now. I feel like we finally made it. Like I got myself out of here and now I feel like I'm showing up to a board of directors meeting, or I feel like I'm showing up to a stakeholders meeting, versus the attorney typically walking into every situation where everybody's looking to them for the answers. So when you don't have the budget for it, and sometimes I say, even if you have the budget for it, because again, you hire someone, you bring them in-house, then you're at the mercy of you being their boss and you training them the way you think it should be done, versus bringing in a fractional or an outsourced position where they're already going to come with that framework for you. So it takes a tremendous amount of pressure off of you for the structure, for the standards, for the framework, but also it puts a ton of accountability on you as an entrepreneur and everybody else in the firm. My favorite saying is, so goes the coach, so go the coachees, that you have to show up like an adult. We have officially shifted into an adult conversation.
And so one of the things that's coming to mind, Molly, is, all right, so you've got this person who's in this role. Some people who are law firm owners are not very comfortable with, tough calls, confrontation with bad news and delivering that bad news. What do you say to people who want to offload sort of all of those unpleasantries and then get to do other things that they enjoy more? Like, are you encouraging the law firm owner to take on some of those difficult conversations still? Or is that something that you really say, that person can take on some of that burden for you?
It's not an either or, it's an and I love that question, Maddy, because so often people will call me and they're like, I want to hire you. Can you fire this person due to, they dump all their dirty work on me. And the part of a CEO or a C-level or a professional law firm administrator is, yes, to take that burden off of you, but also to train you on how to have those conversations going forward. So they are no longer conflict or tricky or what have you, but through the process, you're also training your employees on how to have those conversations as well. So you're not off the hook. It's just about getting the best practice approach and those standards around communication in place within your practice, so they are in the fabric and the bones of your practice. It shifts from a conflict. Or I'm so amazed at how many attorneys really do not like conflict.
And how long they keep staff that are very subpar because it really
Yes,
sucks to fire someone.
it does.
And they keep people on even though they're not, doing well by their firm.
Yes. Yeah. And it's training that muscle, and how do we address it? How do we handle it? And how do we have the conversations and keep that? That's one of the things we do in our weekly stakeholder meeting, is check on how we're doing with communication, talk about what's working, what did not work this week, and then what did work. And once you start exercising that, it's just amazing how week 3, it starts to open. And there's no longer drama in the office. There's no longer burying your head in the sand. Because there's not this essence and energy and this mindset around that there's conflict. No, it's no longer a conflict. Listen, you're not working out. Here's your KPIs. We're going to measure it in 30 days. And typically, they either, I hate to say it, but shape up or ship out. And there's no emotional energy around it. It's just an informed business decision.
Right. And now one of the benefits also that is really clear here is that when you work with someone, like yourself or someone on your team, Molly, you're also getting an arsenal of proven resources. So if you are in a situation where you have to let someone go, someone's sick, we're in the middle of a pandemic still, that's more likely than ever that someone's going to be out of the office for health reasons. You already have these vetted resources and solutions that you can basically plug in to match the problem at hand or the sort of gap that exists. If you're on your own, you're out there asking everyone under the sun, how do I solve this problem? Or you're going with like the fastest thing you can possibly find and afford. That's not necessarily what's best for your business too. So if you think about, things will happen in business that you can't expect. So yes, you're building and you're strengthening your system, but you're also preparing for a successful future because you have this resource that actually opens you up to a network of proven resources. It's not like the person is just seeing Molly, you as a single entity. They're seeing you as a gateway to all of these other solutions and resources that can strengthen their firm that they don't have to go out and vet and discover, which takes so much time. So when the problems arise, there's an answer that's sort of waiting in the wings, ready to be applied. And I think that that's really empowering, not having to solve everything yourself as a solo or small firm business owner is a huge sort of sigh of relief. All of that burden is typically on you.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And I love you use the word empower, because one of the things I give them is my 8-week team empowerment academy. I have the team start with, depending on the role that they're in, mainly the administrative team, legal assistants, paralegals, things of that nature, the front of the house. I have them go through my team empowerment academy and have them put best practice approaches to be self-managing and self-governing every single week, every single quarter, put each employee on a growth plan. And so they have these standards and best practice approach in the framework of their business. And then when they're ready to release me because they have it systematized and bring someone in-house, then they have the framework already set up there, which is, for me, I always say, I don't want you to be codependent on me. I want to give you everything that has worked, the best practice approaches, tried, tested, proven, and then for you to shut the noise off of all the other YouTube videos and endless webinars that you're attending, because the confused mind says no, you get overwhelmed. Attorneys always email me stuff. I was just on this webinar and so said this. I'm like, get off the mailing list now. Like, no more. Just focus on being an attorney and an entrepreneur. Stop sitting on hiring webinars, to your point. Why are you doing that?
Right, exactly. Have your assistant, triage those out of
Yeah.
your inbox. How did you possibly know that we're doing the session today? So that's like, but that's really, I think when you are in that sort of mental place where you know how to prioritize, you know how to, evaluate, should I spend my time, watching this webinar, or should I not? Or do I need to do it later because
Yeah.
this thing is pressing right now? But it's important to do that self-evaluation first and then approach every decision through that lens, knowing what's important, knowing what decisions people can make for you on behalf of the firm, et cetera. And I think one of the issues that you often like to talk about is trust. So a lot of people resist bringing in C-suite level, leadership, whether it's full-time or fractional, because they've had bad experiences in the past. Maybe they have had really bad C-suite leadership that they've worked under in the past. Maybe, they've had other partners at law firms and they've separated. They just have some distrust, mistrust around who is going to come in and really own it in a way that jives with how they want their law firm to operate. It still is personal. It's still got maybe even your name on the door, so to speak, or more like
Yeah.
your website. How do you help people trust again? It's almost like relationship coaching. Like, how do you, embark on this new relationship when, you still feel sort of the pains from the past?
Yeah, I love that question. And as we both know, attorneys, and this is what attorneys have told me, they're trained skeptics, right? That's what they train you in law school, is to blow the doors off of all the holes where that people are lying or mistrust, or they're solution finders. So to my point about going and watching another webinar on hiring, when people come to me, I'm like, all right, you already have this solution solved. So you should be watching a webinar on the debunking the myths on referral and networking marketing, or what have you. What I find with attorneys is that once they find a solution, or they find something that can help them, they will spend more energy trying to find the holes and the breakdowns in what's something that they just found a solution for, than moving on to the next right thing to support them in their revenue or production or whatever it might mean. So when you build that trust is a two-way street. And this is what I tell people, and I will say no to more law firms than yes that I will work with, because they will spend the first 30 minutes of our conversation telling me everywhere in the world that people are doing them wrong and you can't trust anyone, between a marketing person and this person and that person and what have you. And I can't get them to shift of seeing that was, okay, what did you learn from that? What about that do you want to bring into your next contract agreement, that you want to make sure that you're really clear and upfront in tracking and measuring that this doesn't happen again? And what would be your notifications that probably this is going to happen again? And how can we turn it off faster than burying our head in the sand? So helping to build that trust is for them to be really, really clear on a few things. Number one, what didn't work, and they need to be able to articulate it, not just this overarching feeling that that person was a crook or they were this or what have you, where they have these emotional words attached into it. I need concrete things. Okay, they stole X amount of dollars out of what have you. They weren't paying bills. I found a box of checks under their desk. I found that we weren't. Okay, yeah, that's evidence. That is data. That is real. That is true. Versus just this feeling. And then once they can identify that, then helping them be part of the solution of, okay, so now we have this information, it's grist for the mill, it is information and is well-earned information. Now, how's it going to look differently in your next relationship? And if we can't come to very specific, measurable of what are we going to do to track and measure this when we feel, whether it's money or time or whatever area they were done wrong, marketing company not delivering on X, Y, and Z. That's the number one thing I hear. Oh, I hired this marketing company and blah, 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 blah. And I really break down the questions and figure out what was the framework, where was the accountability, where were the consequences, where was the communication and the reporting. And 9 out of 10 times it was that they wrote a check, and either somebody, a paralegal who was also drafting trusts and answering the phones and doing this and this, was responsible for managing it, or nobody managed it. At the end of the day, for me, lack of trust just means that there weren't clear communication standards set up front. There wasn't accountability, there wasn't consequences, and you just wrote a check or hired someone or what have you, and then just expected that people were going to do what they said they were going to do. And it doesn't mean that people are dishonest or out of integrity. It's just about, you have to pull up your bootstraps and realize you are the business owner.
The buck stops with you. Exactly.
Yep.
Yep. Trust but verify. I mean, and that's something that, if you have children or you've done any nonprofit work, you don't have to be a law firm owner to sort of put that into your day-to-day. Trust but verify is something that you'll do with any person you manage, any project you manage. I mean, I'm planning a wedding for next year. I'm thinking about, all of the vendors. It's also something that you have set your own clients' expectations for with you. So how do you flip the table on the head and say, like, look, let me see this from my client's perspective. What do I do to help them trust me early on? And then think about that from your own business perspective. So
I love that you just said that. Because I always say to my clients, people behave how you train them to. So if you hired someone and then you gave them no time, no energy, no feedback, you didn't set the expectation, here's the beginning, the middle, the end, and what I expect, well, then you were an active participant in that, and in regards to the outcome of that relationship or contract or what have you.
And you should probably be doing that more with clients, because if you, sort of have a resistance to laying out your expectations and what's needed to be successful together jointly, you, the attorney, and your client together, you set yourself up for failure if you don't lay out the expectations up front. Like, I understand that, you want a divorce, or you want this resolution, or you want this to proceed. I understand that you don't want to go to jail or all these different things, but, in order to get this done, I'm going to need X, Y, and Z from you. This is on my plate. This is on your plate. Like, do we agree? That conversation should happen, in any sort of work interaction, whether it's you and your fractional CEO, or you and your client, you and your client's mother, who knows, right? So that's an approach that works in many different facets of life. When it comes to, just because we only have, less than 15 minutes left, Molly, I know there are a lot of people who are going to be watching this thinking, all right, how much does this cost? What's the difference between hiring a fractional CEO? How much time is that actually going to give me? And what can I expect out of it for my money? So are you willing to sort of talk figures a little bit? Like, what sort of investment should a law firm owner expect?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you're going to go the fractional model, by and large, it will be a monthly retainer. This is what I tell people. I would say don't get into a year, 2-year contract, what have you, because to the point, that's where people typically have, lack of trust and what have you, because they feel like they're stuck in a contract. We do month to month, because if you're not doing your part and I'm not doing my part and I'm not delivering on my results, I'm not going to hold you to a contract at all.
That's amazing, Molly. I mean, the fact that you would even be available month to month with someone with your expertise, like, if anyone watching this doesn't think that that's outstanding, you haven't worked with enough contractors.
Yes.
That is really, truly exceptional and rare to offer that, Molly. I mean, that's a level of flexibility, and it also speaks to your confidence that, you're investing your time expecting that it will be more than just 1 month, obviously more than just 2 months, but your impact, will have different life cycles, because that law firm may need, a lot of help or a little help, but that is permission for you, the attorney, to dive in, right? That is non-threatening.
Exactly. And, we do a deep dive. We kick off with a 4-hour VIP session where all decision makers are on that call. There's a heavy intake form. of doing a deep analysis in every area of the practice. We go through that 4-hour session, and my track record and my goal always is, okay, attorney, now you're going to give me permission and you're going to let go of control, and I only need you to attend these 2 meetings. It might be 3 in the beginning. So it's where we're meeting with, if you have a key team member or a CFO or whoever your, gatekeeper is at your law firm, your client service coordinator. Every law firm should have somebody in the building they trust, that they'll be able to, and I'm not just talking about CFO or a board of directors, but somebody who has boots on the ground every day. So we'll start with, every week we'll do a full team meeting, which we call a stakeholders meeting. And then I really do force the law firms that I work with to do a weekly marketing meeting. So often when I get into law firms, they just want to talk about marketing. And I'm like, well, tell me about your framework for marketing. They don't have a weekly team meeting. They don't have a marketing plan, don't have a marketing budget. And then they're always constantly bringing marketing into every conversation. So my goal is that I protect their time as much as possible. They show up in 2 meetings a week. We give them the KPIs, we give them the reporting. They have the opportunity, which I tell them, the first couple of minutes of the meeting is I hold the puke bucket and they puke everything out that is driving them crazy, that's not working, and things of that nature. We clearly identify it. We come up with a timeline. We come up with the opportunity for us to show up at the next meeting with a proposed solution or have it completely solved and turned around. So my goal always is to protect the attorney as much as possible from their time, energy, and confidence. And I'm able to work with a key person on their team, and they're just getting the reporting. They're just getting the updates. The challenge is, in the beginning, is getting the attorneys to let go of control. They want to meet 4 or 5 times a week. They want to, and I measure their Colby and their Strength Finder and their DISC to figure out what their hard wiring is. Most attorneys are high fact finders. They want to know the beginning, the middle, the end, and the why. And once you can show them that, then they'll let go. Then they'll be able to trust. So I honor that. And I understand and I know that. And then eventually, then they're able to let go of control once they see proof of concept, once they see the turnaround. Our program that we put people through first is a 12-week program, and it is called the 66-day law firm turnaround. So I have them do that. And then at the end of that 66 days, give or take 12 weeks, by that time, we'll make an informed decision. Okay, I'll stay on and serve in the fractional position, or we're at a place where, wow, we found a sleeping giant in the law firm, or we're going to go out to the market and hire someone to come in and serve as that professional law firm administrator or CEO or COO and things of that nature. That's why I do that and put them through that onboarding program first and foremost, for many reasons. Number one, not a long-term contract. Number two, very, very low risk. It's $6,500. And I do that because I want them to get that proof of concept right then and there. And then at the end of it, if we're not able to accomplish the results, I want them to have the freedom to take what they learn, have it in the fabric of their practice, and then be able to move along.
So if your investment initially is a $6,500, is that it's a few $1,000s a month to keep you on as a fractional CEO, CMO?
Yeah, it's $2,500.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that is an incredible value, and coming in obviously with all of those resources and all of that knowledge to not, go into the deep rabbit hole of like, why are we, facing this problem? How do other people solve it? Your time horizon is also much shorter when you're making that investment. So the change is sooner. It's more of a sure thing. Like, I just want to, convey to everyone who's watching this how empowering that is to not have to wait so long for the results, because the person who's in charge of them has a high degree of confidence and experience in implementing that plan to get the same repeated results, right? Like, this isn't your first rodeo. You're being hired to, sort of draw from the past and apply it to the present situation, obviously in a custom way, but in a way that, very efficiently draws on your experience, Molly.
Thank you.
So yeah, I sincerely appreciate your time here today. If people want to get in touch with you, I will provide the contact information in the notes for this video and the follow-up that we send out afterwards. And I really encourage everyone here to get in touch with Molly, have a conversation with her, explore that initial Kickstart program, the 66 days, and then, pursuing that more long-term relationship, even if it's month to month, to see how, Molly and her team can help, because there are always opportunities and there's no way to grow, just with one person steering the ship alone. There is one question. So let's just address that from the audience. How do you structure the monthly retainer? Is it based on hours? Is it a project basis? What is sort of the delivery vehicle of that retainer? How do you measure that, the output?
Yeah, it's a monthly retainer. I do not do hourly at all. So it's a monthly retainer, and the framework of that and the delivery of that is where I have a weekly meeting with the attorney. Of course, they have access to my bat phone, so to speak, and SOS in regards to emails and phone calls and things of that nature. I facilitate and lead their weekly team meeting in addition to their weekly marketing meeting, and then conduct and give them my entire system for quarterly employee growth plans. So I help facilitate that, get that standardization within the law firm. And then after that, it's already in the fabric for every new onboarding person. I don't like employee reviews or performance plans or things of that nature. I put them on a growth plan where they're very heavily involved in their quarterly goals and KPIs.
Fantastic. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today. And Molly, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Always. Is there anything else that you want to share that we didn't cover?
No, I'd say a great way to stay connected is go to our website, hiringandempowering.com. I've been blogging every single week since 2008. We have a weekly podcast that goes out every Tuesday, a blog that goes out every Thursday. In addition to, if you want, you could download the free book. It's a 126-page book, the 66-day law firm turnaround. And there's some great practices in there for you that you could implement today.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
If you don't have that book, go and add it to the top of your reading list. It is free. There's, nothing you can say that, you won't get a kernel of new information from that. There's no way that you know everything in that book. So go download it, read it, and get in touch with Molly. She has a fantastic podcast. You can, if you're not sick of listening to us already, you can listen to more of us in one episode there. And, Molly, thank you again. Appreciate you helping us kickstart a really strong 2021.
Thank you, Maddie.
Take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Have a great day.